Yeah, it's Lil Kenny Russell, Kanoon, Connoisseur Moon. You already know what you're gonna get when you step in the room. Now I'm dealing with Kanoon. Yeah, I'm here. And while I'm here, I'm gonna make the information direct and clear. 'Cause a lot of y'all can't hear. Now, today I want to do something called the book of the book of beginnings, Genesis, talking about the biblical interpretation from a so-called Moses, the Europeans' first understanding of the creation story and things of that nature through a fictitious writer and from a fictitious standpoint of the opinions and the mind frame of this Moses, which is just a name that they wrote through. Okay, so um, I want to share this intro with you guys that I put together as all the master teachers. I want to give an honor and take my hat off to every time I come on this platform. It's been a while. You know, we're going to go through this book of beginnings, and I want to say thank you to whoever going to watch it, whoever going to view it, and let's rock and roll.
And there's one thing you have to get through your mind and keep it. Nothing that ever came from the European mind was meant to do anything but facilitate European domination of the world. And I said there's no exception.
That was the master teacher, Dr. John Henry Clarke, letting the world know that nothing that ever came from the European mind was meant to do anything but facilitate European domination of the world, and there's no exception. And I agree with the ancestor wholeheartedly. Now, in that picture, you've seen a lot of master teachers. You've seen, of course, John Henry Clarke, who was narrating it so profoundly. You've seen Khalid Muhammad. You've seen John G. Jackson. You've seen Sheikh Anta Diop. You've seen Dr. Ben. You've seen Walter Williams. And those are Ivan Van Sertima and Malcolm X, El Haj Malik Shabazz. Those are people that I take my hat off to. It's much more ancestors that I honor, of course, and I give them an honorable mention in my heart. But those are some of the few names I want to, be very, very direct. Those type of personalities stemmed exactly what I do today. Okay, so now I want to share my screen and go into this content. Okay. Now, this is what we're dealing with. Let me check, make sure we rocking. Give me a second, y'all bear with me. This is what we're gonna do. I'm sorry, that's not the beginning of it. Okay, my mic sounds a little low, but I got my iPods in, so hopefully you'll be able to adjust it and turn it up. My mic sounds a little low. Okay, we rocking. That's good enough. We rocking. Okay, cool. Now, the book of beginnings for the European race, Genesis. This is, some always have to be a European, white-haired European, older in stature and makeup and long type of beard. Okay, and this is my stamp. So if anybody want to try to, it's like a water print or whatever you call it, but it's my stamp to let you know. On the right, I'm talking about at the right bottom corner, that's Kanoon. Okay, that's some of the ancestral deities. I took the name Kanoon, Connoisseur Moon, and what that means is Kanoon was the motor of man. Khonsu was a night deity. Amun is the unseen nature of it all, which is the universe. So basically, what I adopted those three for was I can literally mold men overnight under the presence of Amun, the unseen God and creator, if you want to use the term God, but it's a deity, okay? So those are three ancestors. I put them together for my own understanding, and that's the understanding, right? Um, Simple and direct. This is a quote by Dr. Walter Williams. Facts, which are stronger than arguments, more profound than reasoning, more dependable than opinion, silences disputes, supersedes predictions, and facts always end the argument if you know the facts. So that's what I like to deal in. Okay. Now we're going on down, and I do have some notes here, but this was like, this is just a slide for me. We're going to question and talk about the last slide, which is Moses that I showed you. And who was Moses? Who is Moses? Who was there when he got all this profound information? Because he's explaining non-human things, which means no human beings was on the planet at the time for him to interpret this type of information. So a lot of people might say that's how you know he was an inclined witness or inspired by God. I beg to differ, because if God was doing all these things, who was keeping notes with God? I mean, God had a note keeper. We need to know his name. And if it's so inspired by this God, which is not, we would need to know the key ingredients. Who was there? Who kept the notes? Who was God note keeper? And we don't have any of this information. It's never been questioned before. Well, it has, but I'm just saying, nobody used their logical mind and say, where did he get all this profound information from? How can a human explain pre-human activities? Oh, I seen the first trees. I seen the first fowl. I seen the first any type of life come, and I named it. You know what I mean? If the story is true, why aren't there any original scripts? Which they're not. Is the story oral tradition? If so, who told Moses? Or is it all myth? And that's what people don't want to deal with. But I'm gonna bring it to your attention today. Okay? Excuse me. Because there's a lot of problems that goes on with the book of Genesis. This is part one. This is part one for me, putting it down and showing y'all a couple of the things that I had on my mind about it. So let me make sure the screen is big enough. Yeah, the screen is big enough. You guys will be able to read it, screenshot it, whatever the case may be. And let's go. I'll open it up a little bit more if I can. But that's about it. So Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Again, who's there to understand and keep notes of this? Now, this is myth, but what we were taught in Bible school or Sunday school, whatever the case may be, in church, was that this stuff is authentic and real, and you don't question it. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the earth, of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. Okay, he did all this without a sun or a moon. Because if you go on into the story, you know he didn't create those until a couple of days later. So that's another thing we have to question. What lit it up? See? If you don't believe me, read on. You understand that when he said this, he divided light from dark. There was no moon, there was no sun at this current time. It goes on further in the story to where he developed two greater lights, and he put one in the night and one to separate the day. But he just did that in 1:1 without even creating the sun and the moon. So that's a real quick basis for questioning. But you run over that because you was taught not to question God. These are idiotic type of things that people don't mention because they're scared to question this term God. But God is nobody to not question. And the Bible will say question all things as well. And you still won't do it because you have some fear for the term God that the European has taught you. He's a superior, oversized white man sitting in the clouds on the throne, deciding who and who can't come into heaven. Now this is Moses with his arms wide open and his staff. And he's supposed to be the guy that went into Egypt, said, let my people go and all that type of stuff. But see, the pastor didn't tell you that it wasn't him. It was his brother Aaron that did all that. This dude had a stutter, okay? So now let's see what it says about Moses. God sent Moses back into Egypt to demand the release of the Israelites from slavery. Now this is all we knew. You didn't understand that Aaron went in there and did all the talking. Okay. Moses said that he could not speak eloquently. So God allowed Aaron, his elder brother. You see what I'm saying? You didn't know that. You thought Moses was in there laying his rap down like, hey, let my Israelite brothers go or I'll do this and that. But no, he stuttered. He spoke with a stutter. So it's a lot of lies and contradictions right as we go. You know what I mean? You didn't know that. So that's very enlightening to know. So this God allowed Aaron, his elder brother, when Moses is supposed to be his vessel, that he utilizes. He let him put the staff in the water. He let him take these mighty people out of. Everything goes through Moses. He gave the story to Moses. He didn't give it to his older brother Aaron. But this dude he spoke with a stutter. He couldn't even eloquently speak. And I'm gonna show you a contradiction in that. So that's a contradiction already. But I'm gonna show you another contradiction on that. Because on here, you thought Moses was who God used because that's the way they teach us. That he used his mighty man Moses to do all things, but that's a lie because his brother Aaron, his older brother Aaron, had to be used as well in this whole contextual basis of him going before the Pharaoh and doing all these things. That was Aaron. So he used his older brother. He allowed Aaron, his elder brother, to become his spokesperson. Okay, God said, hey, I'm gonna let Aaron do this because I know you special. You special ed and you stutter like a motherfucker. You don't get in front of the Pharaoh and crumble because he's too powerful to make wits with some silly ass half brother of his. Because you gotta understand the story. The Pharaoh's sister, our daughter, found him and playing and all that shit. And so he was raised up under these glorious like understandings of our ancestors. You know, so God even knew like, nah, the Pharaoh gonna break you. You can't even speak with him. After the 10 plagues, Moses led the exodus of the Israelites out of Egypt and across the Red Sea, after which they based themselves at the biblical Mount Sinai, where Moses received the 10 Commandments. After 40 years of wandering in the desert, Moses within sight of the promised land on Mount Nebo. Okay? Now, another thing about that is they didn't have any rules. They want you to understand that the Israelites or nobody on the planet had any rules until Moses went and got this glorious 10 Commandments, which you have to lead your life by in a religious context. What I'm speaking about is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So they didn't have the 10 Commandments at this time. If you stand in the story, stay in the story now in the context of the story in which we're telling it. It's a progressive story, but in each progression, keep your mind in the story. Okay? Now, what was I saying? Moses had to receive the 10 Commandments before there would be any law on the planet. At first, the planet was lawless. That's what we're supposed to understand. Now, that's a lie. Because, see, Moses had, in the story at least, none of this stuff happened historically. I'm just letting you understand that the story is weak. We're going to break it down. It's not historical, but we have to deal with what we have here to show people that even a non-historical story has so many holes in it, we can deem it false. Okay? It's falsified information. It's non-historical. Moses, he didn't receive the 10 Commandments until after he fled Egypt and all that. But why would he fled Egypt if there was no rules? The story says that he seen some of Pharaoh's men beating an Israelite slave, and he killed one. Okay, so it's a punishment for murder in Egypt, so he had to run out of Egypt, before they punish him. So that's a rule right there, don't murder people. His brother Aaron stole some money from like a treasure. So he had to run with the rest of the Israelites, which was his younger brother Moses, to get out of there as well because he was a thief. So that's 2 laws right there from the 10 Commandments that he hasn't received yet, but the ancient Egyptians already had those laws. So they didn't need the 10 Commandments. They have 42 laws already that they lived by. Okay, so that's another crack in this silly ass story. Okay, generally, Moses is seen as a legendary figure. Okay, the word legendary means something, and I'm going to show you what that word legendary means. It don't mean legendary like Mike Tyson, a legendary knockout champion who is a historical person, so you can just mesh that word in there like he's really a legendary historical figure. That's not what that means. A legendary figure, whilst retaining the possibility that Moses or a Moses-like figure existed in the 13th century BCE, and that's just a grasp for straws. They don't know. They just put that together. Uh, Rabbinical Judaism calculated lifespan of Moses corresponding to 1391 to 1271. Okay? Again, Jerome suggested that it was 1592. That would have been the 16th century BCE. Another lie, because you can just, when there's no life to consider, you can change the dates to whatever, fits you at your own discretion. So this Jerome, which is a fake name, he said it was in 1592. And James Ussher, this is the guy who said that the world started and gave the exact date for it, not God. Bishop James Ussher, you can look him up. I think his name is Ulysses Ussher. He put the date on the Bible, 4004, and then he had a date for it and all. I think it was September, October. Just look him up, you'll see. He suggested that he was born 1571, okay? So you have 3 dates here, and he put that as his birth year, James Ulysses Ussher, okay? He was a bishop. So here you have Moses coming out of the 13th century, according to rabbinical Judaism, 1391 to 1271, a gap of 120 years, okay? You got another guy, Jerome suggested that he was 1592, the 16th century BC, and James Ussher said it was 20 years after that, 1571 BC. Because in BC, the dates count down. So again, contradicting statements. Everybody have their own opinion. But when it's not lifelike, you can move a created, biblical, fictitious character in any time period you want them to stand in. They're not, you don't have to take into consideration real human being life because you're not speaking and dealing with any of that. These are characters, biblical characters. Now, legend. Remember I told you about the legendary word? Let me let you understand what it means. Just look at the slide for a second, get a drink. We're going to cook them. You know what I mean? I'm going to cook them. I'll let you understand it from the most layman's terms, okay? Now, legend. A legend is a genre of folklore, that consists of a narrative featuring human actions believed or perceived both by teller and listeners to have taken place within human history. Okay, these are stories, wives' tales, oral history. You see what I'm saying? And they can go on and take these oral traditions and just, embellish them, make them larger. Narratives in this genre may demonstrate human values and possess certain qualities that give the tale verisimilitude. Legend or its active and passive participants may include miracles. You know damn well it had to be a miracle for Moses to lead all these people while he get to the Red Sea, stick a stick down in the ground, and do something that's physically impossible. That's a physical impossibility. Stick a stick down in the ground and part the sea, and they go across and don't even get their feet wet. And then when they look back and the ancient Egyptians come and you pull it out and drown them and kill them, and there's no history of any pharaohs drowning. So that's false again. It's falsified information. It's lies on top of lies on top of lies. Okay, includes miracles. Legends may be transformed over time in order to keep them fresh and vital. Okay. Many legends operate within the realm of uncertainty, never being entirely believed by the participants, but also never being absolutely doubted. Okay, so you can take it for what it is. They're saying it's sometimes it's never really absolutely believable. Like you're like, man, I don't think nobody walked on water, but you would take the story in and run with it because you can't disprove it. That's all that's basically saying. Legends are sometimes distinguished from myths in that they concern human beings as the main characters rather than gods, and sometimes in that They have some sort of historical basis, whereas myths generally do not. Okay, so this is verisimilitude. This is what it means. The word that I read up top is the life, likeness, or believability of a work of fiction. Okay, so the word verisimilitude is used when they're describing Moses. If you look at the top part of legend, just screenshot it, do your research, and you can see they use the term verisimilitude. That means life, likeness, believability of a work of fiction. Okay, so that's what they use describing as Moses. Now I want to take you into Exodus. This is scripture now. Okay, we've been dealing with scripture, and I've been knocking holes in the scripture to show you that the scripture isn't even real if it's so-called inspired by this God. It's a lot of holes in God's story, don't you think? So if this Moses was merely a man and inspired by, he got a whole lot of God's words misunderstood, or he just filled in the blanks himself, and both is dangerous. If he misunderstood God's word, not my God, but I'm just speaking, then he did wrong on that end. If he filled in some of the blank and didn't quite understand it and put it in his human understanding, that's wrong again. So this King James Version, Exodus 24. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill. He built an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacred peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. This means they killed animals, and they at that altar they dripped blood and all this, because you can't get this bloodthirsty, silly ass God and Lord term Lord that they use in the biblical sense in the Bible without some blood offerings. This Lord won't respond unless there's blood on the ground, and then okay, now I accept that offering. I can see you dripping blood towards me, right? Because the word blessed means drip blood anyway. You dripping blood towards me, right? Now you got my attention. So all this silly sacrificial type of silly ass God understands. And that very emblem of Christianity is a sacrificial lamb, which is a man beaten to a bloody pulp, transformed into basically like ground beef, distorted and beat like hell into submission to save you. I mean, you couldn't do it in any other way. It's a silly ass God, okay? And he took the book of the covenant, okay? Hold on, I'm sorry, I skipped 6. And Moses took half of the blood and put it on basins. He put it on basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. This is for the Lord. And he took the book of the covenant, okay, and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that the Lord hath said will we do, and we will be obedient. They'll be obedient toward it. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, that means blessing them, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. See, so up here in the very beginning, in 4, Exodus 24:4, I want you to relook at the top, 4. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, see, and rose up early in the morning and built an altar. He was so grateful to build an altar, and he had to pay this Lord back because he was, again, I guess he was spiritually inspired to write this down. And he was so inspired that he had something good. He built the altar with 12 pillars around it real quick, killed up some oxen, which is bull and stuff, and put this blood to say, man, I thank him so much. He inspired and gave us rules, and he gave death, which is blood, to this God, okay, in his gratitude. Shit, I hate to see what they do if a motherfucker pissed him off. In his gratitude, he killed oxen and get blood, prepare blood for this Lord to be grateful towards him. So you imagine if he disliked what the Lord had going on or disliked somebody, boy, shit, they'll kill you in a minute, I guess. Okay? Now, what I wanted you to read forward for was, again, Exodus 4 at the top, 24. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord. See, he wrote it himself because he was spiritually inspired. Now, Exodus 32 and 14, And I got it both in King James Version and New Living Translation, which is more like layman's terms so you can understand it. Okay, now in Exodus 32, this is what the Lord had going on, the book Lord. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. The Lord was going to kill him. I told you, if you get angry, you imagine what he'll do to you. You never have to worry about the devil in this book because the Lord's wrath is so harsh. Shit, you rather deal with the devil than to fuck with this God, okay? And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hands. The tablets were written on both sides, on the one side and on the other were they written. And the tablets were the work of God. God written them with his own motherfucking hands. He took 2 tablets, held up to the sky, and this God wrote on them. Okay, so this is physical impossibility, but you have to be in a spiritual type mind, in a spiritual realm, and a total disagreement of human possibility and human being type of characteristics to stay in the contextual mind frame of this silly, goofy, childlike ass book. Okay, this can't happen physically. You can go up right now to the highest mount and hold some tablets and books up there, and ain't shit gonna get written on it. So if it didn't happen then, it can't happen again. What makes us believe that this story is true? This is physical impossibilities that's happening here. But in the spiritual realm, hey, everything can work. See? Stop being foolish and silly. Read the book for yourself. And the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tablets. Now, what does that mean? Okay, that was King James. Let's go down here to New Living Translation, the bottom. Same thing, Exodus 14 through 15, in a different version, NLT, New Living Translation. We just read King James. Follow me. Understand what I'm saying. Interpret what I'm saying. These are physical, human-like impossibilities, but when you're dealing with fictitious characters, non-humans, anything is possible if you're on the spiritual, contextual realm of this book, because all things can happen in folklore, miracle, spiritual like understanding, and all that silly ass shit. But you understand in the physical world, none of this is possible. But these are physical people we're supposed to understand that had all this going on. We're not talking about spirits. Moses is depicted as a physical man. God, Jesus, they lived in the physical. They did not, but I'm saying in the book they did. That's how it's interpreted. They're letting you believe that these people did this stuff on human being grounds in human being form, but they were so miraculous and special people that unhuman-like things was happening to just these particular group of humans. And it's time to let this shit go and stop it. This never happened, okay? Now, Exodus 32:14 in the New Translation. So the Lord changed his mind about the terrible disaster he had threatened to bring upon his people. He was going to destroy and kill them. Like I said, if you make the Lord mad, you can kick the devil out the window because he can't do shit that the Lord can do to you. Okay? You don't need the devil when you read this book. The Lord is your devil and everything else because he's your worst nightmare. Okay? Now, the Lord changed his mind. Okay, let's go at 15. Then Moses turned and went down the mountain. He held in his hands the 2 stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant. Okay, these are the 10 commandments. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were God's work. The works on them were written by God himself. So if you think I'm carrying on, read it for yourself. You don't need no interpretation or no spiritual Reverend Really Ridiculous, Pastor Pork Chop, Deacon don't know a damn thing. You don't need none of these people to interpret it for you. Hey, I'm going to ask Pastor what this means. I got to call Pastor and ask Pastor what New Living Translation Exodus verse 15 means. Because Pastor, he going to show me this. See? You don't need nobody to interpret it for you. It says it right here. Let's read 16 again. Exodus. These tablets were written. These These tablets were God's work. The words on them were written by God himself. Now tell me when God has did anything physical for you. Like you going to get a sandwich and God passed you the cheese. Here you go. Tell me where that's happened at. Okay, if you do that, I'll rest my case. Now these are the 10 Commandments in pictorial form. You see the hand, right? It's a European Neanderthal Cro-Magnon man hand in the terms of King Seti, the general Sirah, and I fuck with Sirah, gas, global African supremacy, you know what I mean, and the Black Power cartel, okay? Fucks with Seti hard. Shout out to the brother, big salute, okay? This is a European hand. It's supposed to be God. He's showing you how inscribed and written. If you can see my mouse on the right hand side up top, he's scribing them and he's carving them with his hand. And on the left, you see his hands reached out like he just you know, carved them in. It looked like blood on it, so it lets you know it's the blood of the work. And at the bottom, I mean on the right, you see top, the white hand, which everything in the Bible is European. I don't care how you kind of change it to black. At that time, it was, I understand all that, but this is Europeans' work for the European, okay? Now, at the bottom, you got Moses ready to receive him. He's looking at the glorious work this Lord is doing with his own finger, okay? Now, I want to show you a contradiction. We've pretty much done. I didn't want to go over 30 minutes because 30 minutes, because a lot of people don't have that type of attention span. And when you learn this stuff, you have to break it down and you have to show people the way that it is so they can see it and understand it in their own time, their own spirituality, their own physical, mental understanding. You can deal with different people on different type of levels of wherever they at of understanding, okay? Now, this is just a bonus. This is just a bonus clip, or whatever the case may be. I forgot what they would call, what I call them. This is just a bonus clip for you, okay? Now, Acts 7:22 in the King James Bible. And Moses was learned in all wisdoms of the Egyptian and was a might Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in ideas. And in deeds. Excuse me. Now, the New Living Translation, what does that mean? Acts 7:22. What does it mean in layman's terms? Okay? Moses was taught all the wisdoms of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in both speech and action. Okay? Fun fact, plus a contradiction in the so-called Holy Bible, God's words. I just told you. When we go back, you will understand that he was not a mighty speaker. Let me go back to 6, right here. Okay? Moses said that he could not speak eloquently, so God allowed Aaron, his elder brother, to become his spokesman. Let me read that again. Okay? God sent Moses back to Egypt to demand the release of the Israelites from slavery. Moses said that he could not speak eloquently, so God allowed Aaron, his elder brother, to become his spokesman. Moses said it with his own mouth. I can't speak eloquently. He couldn't speak. Okay? He wasn't a mighty speaker. But in Acts 7:22, in the New Living Translation, and in the King James, let's read the King James again because we out. And Moses was learned in all the wisdoms of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deeds, which means he was a mighty speaker and he sure enough knew how to articulate himself and do his thing. Now, a New Living Translation, what does that mean? Acts 7:22. Do this research for yourself. I'm not playing with the Bible. I'm showing you scripture and contradictions in this silly ass Lord's book, which is no Lord's book, which is no Moses, which are fictitious characters brought to you by the European himself to continue to run the world, be your spiritual father. Your God is in his honor. Your God is in his name, in his image. And you want to continue to worship him because your silly ass won't break that link. Okay? Moses was taught all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in both speech and action. Okay, that's a contradiction. I rest my case. Okay, now let me stop sharing. Okay, let me put this down and let me stop sharing. And I want to say thank y'all. Sorry. Let me go back to the original screen, let y'all understand. I thank y'all for rocking with me. This is part one of the book of the beginnings for the European. He comes to you as your leader. He's never did anything righteous or had any gratitude for anything that you brought, which is civilization, understanding of these gods, the term gods, deities, spirituality. Never gotten any credit for it, and you never will, as long as you're in the house and live under the European white man's rules. You will continue to come second, get yours in the hereafter while he lives on heaven on earth, and you have to die before you get in heaven. And I want to play this one more time, and I want to play the ancestor one more time so you can understand the European's mind and what he used it for. Okay, so let me play it one more time.
Nothing that ever came from the European mind was meant to do anything but facilitate European domination of the world. And I said there's no exception.
Okay, let me play it again.
And there's one thing you have to get through your mind and keep it. Nothing that ever came from the European mind was meant to do anything but facilitate European domination of the world. And I said there's no exception.
Yeah. I want to thank y'all for rocking with me. Kanoum, Consort Moon, you already know what you're going to get when you step in the room. You're now dealing with Kanoum. Yeah. Be out. That was the book of the beginnings. The beginning for the European, part one. Thank you.